Hey OAC family, it's Craig here, and it's 12 o'clock on Tuesday, so it's time for Tuesday Talks with Craig. I'm glad you're tuning in, whether you're joining me live right now or going to be watching later. Glad to have you with me here. And it's Advent. We've been going through the season of Advent. In the last couple weeks on Tuesdays, I've been talking about the different words for each week. So the first week of Advent was hope. And in this season of Advent, as we've talked about, it's a time of anticipation. It's often marked as a season in the church calendar, as a season of preparation, sort of preparing ourselves for the arrival of Christ and reflecting back 2,000 years ago to his first arrival and looking ahead to when he will return again. And this morning, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the third week of Advent and the word being joy. And joy is a word I'm really wrestling with, and hopefully my thoughts will make some sense today. But in this season of COVID that we're in, and hey Eddie, glad to have you joining us here. In the season of COVID that we're in, and obviously we're going to be embracing Christmas in probably a very different way than we have in the past. Here in Alberta, there's a number of restrictions that are limiting us from getting together with people over Christmas. And a lot of the Christmas season, when we think about the word joy, some of the things we might think about is times with people, going to parties and gatherings, having family over or going to be with family, maybe even traveling to be with family. And often it's these times together, it's these celebrations, it's feasts, it's the giving of gifts, all these different things that often are joyful experiences to us. And I'm wondering if there's a lot of us who are looking at Christmas this year and just kind of wondering, how are we going to experience joy in the midst of all the uncertainty and sort of the chaos of our world, amidst this idea of feeling locked down or maybe being locked down? How are we going to experience joy? And I've been reading a number of articles on sort of the increase of mental health challenges and people struggling to experience sort of the fullness of mental health. And that's a very real thing that many of us are probably dealing with and going through and sort of struggling with right now. So as we think about this word joy in Advent, what are we supposed to do with that? And so I just want to read a couple of scriptures that I'm hoping will encourage us and prompt us to maybe a deeper sense of worship and a deeper sense of welcome to Christ, who wants to come and minister joy into our hearts. And so the one passage is from Psalm 126, and we actually read a portion of this passage as part of our Advent reading at church on Sunday. And sort of the back part, the second half of the psalm is kind of this prayer. So let me just start with the second half, and it's Psalm 126, starting in verse 4. The psalmist says, "Restore our fortunes, Lord." It's like he's praying. This is his request. "Restore our fortunes, Lord, like streams in the Negev. Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy. Those who go out weeping, carrying seed to sow, will return with songs of joy, carrying sheaves with them." And it's like the psalmist is acknowledging I'm not experiencing joy right now. I'm weeping. I'm full of sorrow. And in this state of being sorrowful, or this state of weeping, the psalmist is praying, asking the Lord to restore their fortunes so that they can experience joy. And so that's the request, and I wonder if that's a prayer that many of us might be praying right now. We don't feel very joyful. We don't feel like rejoicing. So, Lord, would you restore us to a place of experiencing joy in you? That might be a prayer that you can relate to. And I want to just go back now and read the first part of that psalm, which gives sort of the lead up to why the psalmist would pray this prayer, and why he would believe that God would answer this prayer, that out of weeping would come joy, that out of sorrow would come an experience of joy. So the first part of the psalm says this: when the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion. So it's like the psalmist is looking to the past. In the past, in former times, when the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dreamed. Our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongues with songs of joy. Then it was said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. And then the psalmist says, the Lord has done great things for us, and we are filled with joy. So just before praying this prayer, where the psalmist realizes we're weeping, we're sorrowful, we want to experience joy, he has recounted times in the past where God has shown up and God has done great things in his life and in the community of faith, the people of God, and how God restored their fortunes and they were able to experience joy that he described as mouths being filled with laughter, tongues with songs of joy, being able to declare the Lord has done great things for us and we are filled with joy. So why do I share this passage with us this morning? I want to encourage you to reflect back on times in your life where God has shown up, where God has sort of reversed your fortunes. Maybe for us, I can remember the birth of our daughter, Matea. We named her Gift of God because at the outset of our pregnancy with Matea, things were looking really bleak. There was a lot of sorrow and a lot of tears that were shed and a lot of prayers that were prayed, and God showed up, and we were able to welcome a beautiful little girl into the world named Matea, which means gift of God. And for me, she is a constant reminder that the Lord is faithful and he can turn our weeping into laughter. He can turn our sorrow into joy. And so a question for you would be, what are some ways where God has shown up in your life? And if you feel comfortable, you're welcome to put comments in the chat on this live stream. How has God shown up in your life in the past and sort of reversed your fortune? And I don't just mean material well-being, but I mean spiritual fortune, reversing the state of your soul from being of a place of sorrow and weeping to a place of joy and rejoicing. And it's out of that context of our past walk with God, our past experiences with God, is what drive us to go to him today in whatever state that you find yourself in, whatever circumstances and however you're processing those circumstances and the state of your soul. But if you're in a place of sorrow, or if you're in a place of weeping, or if you're in a place of just wondering, I don't know if I'm going to experience that joy, reflect back and then invite God in again and invite him to do what only he can do so that you can declare the Lord has done great things for us. The Lord has done great things for me, and we are filled with joy. Another verse that struck me as I was thinking about this talk today is in Philippians chapter 4, verse 4, and it's a bit of a command or an instruction from Paul. He says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near." And as I read that verse, I'm reminded that our joy is found in the Lord. And again, reflecting on the faithfulness of him in the past in our lives and anticipating what he might do again in the future, and ultimately how one day Jesus will return and restore all things, make all things good, and we can celebrate and be joyful in that moment. But in the here and now, to be reminded that the Lord is near. And the command there is to rejoice in the Lord. Don't rejoice in your circumstances, because circumstances will change. Don't rejoice in how you're feeling, because your feelings will change, but rejoice in the Lord and his love and his faithfulness for you. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. My hope and prayer for you this Advent season is that whatever you're feeling today, you would look to Jesus and invite him in to reverse your fortunes, reverse the state of your soul, so that you can be in a place of experiencing the fullness of joy in him. I'm praying for you today. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to chatting with you again next week.